The email was opened. Not by me. 3 years ago, someone read the message that was supposed to change my life and decided I didn't deserve to see it. I didn't know that at the time. I just thought I wasn't good enough, that I failed, that they rejected me. But the truth? The truth was sitting in my inbox the entire time, unread, waiting, while I built a life around a lie. And the person who created that lie was sitting across from me at dinner, smiling, like nothing ever happened. Before I explain how I found out, my name is Natalie Brooks, and this started 3 years ago in Charlotte, North Carolina. Before I continue, if stories about truth, betrayal, and quiet strength matter to you, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now. I read more of them than you think. 3 years ago, I wasn't just applying for a job, I was applying for a way out of the same routine, out of the same expectations, out of the version of my life that felt already decided. It was a marketing firm in downtown Charlotte, glass building, corner offices, the kind of place you walk past and think, one day. But for me, that one day felt close. I wasn't guessing. I wasn't hoping blindly. I had the experience, the portfolio. The interviews went well, too well, because when you've spent years being told to stay realistic, you recognize the difference between a long shot and a real chance. And this felt real. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't imagining a different life. I was standing right in front of it. After the final interview, they told me something simple. We'll be in touch soon. That word, soon, is dangerous because it sounds close. It sounds certain. So I waited like it mattered. Every morning, before I even got out of bed, I checked my email. Not casually, carefully. Like something important might be sitting there, waiting for me to notice it. I refreshed more times than I can count. Sometimes twice, sometimes 10 times. Even at work. I'd open a tab quietly and check again. Just in case. Because that's what waiting does. It turns minutes into questions, and silence into answers you don't trust. Days passed, then weeks, and slowly, that soon started to feel like nothing. At some point, waiting becomes exhausting, not physically, emotionally, because every time you check, you're hoping again, and hope gets heavy when it's not answered. That's when I said it out loud. I think they rejected me. I didn't say it because I knew. I said it because I needed closure, and my mother gave it to me immediately. No reply means no. Simple, clean, final. No hesitation, no questions. Just an answer that closed the door for me, and I accepted it. Not because I was sure, but because it was easier than opening that door again. Because sometimes, believing you weren't chosen hurts less than asking why. After that, I stopped checking. Not suddenly, but gradually. First, every morning, then every few days, then not at all. And once you stop checking, you stop expecting. I took another job. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't mine. It paid the bills. It filled the hours. But it didn't move anything forward. It just kept everything in place. And I told myself something people say when they're trying to be okay. It's fine. Because fine is easier to live with than what if. But every time I drove past that building downtown, I felt it. That quiet question. The one you don't say out loud. Because you already think you know the answer. Around the same time, my cousin Lily got a job. Big company, big announcement, family dinner, celebration. Everyone was excited, especially my mother. She talked about Lily like she always had. Proud, certain, confident. She worked hard. She deserves this. She's going to go far. And I smiled. Of course I did. Because that's what you do when someone else gets the moment you thought might be yours. But something felt off. Not about Lily. About the difference. Because when it was her, there was excitement. But when it was me, there was acceptance. Like my outcome had already been decided before it even happened. And that's when I felt it. This wasn't just about her success. It was about mine. Not being allowed. My mother didn't ignore me. She supported me. Just differently. You'll find something better. Everything happens for a reason. Maybe that wasn't your place. She said all the right things, the kind of things that sound like comfort. And I believed her. Because she wasn't stopping me. She wasn't controlling me. She was just guiding me. At least that's what it felt like. But guidance can be quiet, subtle. It doesn't always push you back. Sometimes, it just makes staying feel safer than leaving. And over time, I stopped reaching for more. Not because I couldn't. Because I thought I shouldn't. Looking back now, that wasn't the only time something felt off. There were small things, moments I ignored, messages I somehow missed, information I heard late, decisions that were already made before I knew they existed. At the time, they felt random, unimportant, easy to forget, because nothing was obvious, nothing was loud. But patterns like that don't start loud. They stay quiet, so you don't question them, so you don't connect them, and so you never realize that something is being decided for you. 3 years passed. Not dramatically, not suddenly, just quietly. Work, home, routine. Days that looked the same, weeks that blurred together. And that job, that moment, that version of my life, it stopped feeling real. Like it belonged to someone else. Someone I used to be. Because when something doesn't happen, you don't just lose the opportunity. You lose the version of yourself that believed it would. And eventually, you stop asking what could have been, because you think it's already over. It wasn't a big event, just a family dinner, birthday, cake, conversations. Normal. That kind of normal where nothing is supposed to change. People talking over each other, laughing, sharing updates. And I was there, just part of it. Until someone mentioned that company, casually, like it didn't matter. Oh yeah, they were hiring a few years ago, right? Before I could even respond, my mother answered. Yes, Natalie applied. And then, she never heard back. Too fast, too smooth. Like she wasn't remembering. She was repeating. And something about that moment didn't feel right. I didn't react. Not immediately. I just looked at her. For a second. And she was smiling, talking, completely normal. But when our eyes met, she looked away. Not slowly, not naturally, quickly. Like she didn't want to stay there. And that was it. That tiny shift. That almost invisible moment. That didn't match her words. Because people who are telling the truth don't avoid eye contact. Not like that. And in that moment, something changed. Not outside. Inside. Because for the first time in 3 years, I didn't feel rejected. I felt wrong. And that's a very different feeling. Because rejection ends a story. But doubt starts one. That night, I didn't think about the job. Not directly. I thought about her, the way she answered. Too quickly. Too clean. Like the sentence was ready. And that's what stayed with me. Not the words. The timing. Because real memories take a second. You pause. You think. You search for details. But she didn't. She didn't search. She delivered. Like she already knew exactly what to say. And that difference? It's small. But once you notice it, you can't unsee it. I replayed that moment again. Her smile, her tone, and then that look, the one right after, when our eyes met and she looked away. Fast. Not like someone distracted, like someone avoiding. And that's when something shifted. Because I've known her my whole life. I know the difference between her being busy and her being careful. And that wasn't busy. That was careful. Like she didn't want me to stay on that moment. Like if I looked too long, I might see something she didn't want me to see. I didn't say anything. Not at the table. Not on the way home. Not even later that night. Because something told me this wasn't a question I should rush. If I asked too soon, I'd get the same answer, the same tone, the same certainty. And whatever this feeling was, it would disappear. So instead, I stayed quiet. And I watched. Because sometimes, silence tells you more than questions ever will. That night, I went back. Not to the job. To that week. 3 years ago. When I told her I hadn't heard back. I remembered exactly where I was. Standing in the kitchen. Phone in my hand. And I said, I think they rejected me. And she didn't react. No surprise. No confusion. No follow-up. Just, then it wasn't meant for you. At the time, it felt like comfort. Now, it felt like an answer that came too easily. The more I thought about it, the stranger it became. Because my mother isn't passive. She doesn't just accept things. She checks. She questions. She follows up on everything. Emails, appointments, deadlines. She double-checks everything. Except that. That one moment. That one opportunity. She didn't ask. Did you check again? Did they send anything else? Are you sure? Nothing. Just closure, immediate. Like she didn't need more information. Like she already had it. And then I realized something else. Back then, I had told her everything. Every interview. Every update. Every step. She knew the timeline. She knew when I was supposed to hear back. She knew it mattered. So if nothing came, why didn't she question it? Why didn't she check with me? Why didn't she follow up the way she always does? That wasn't like her. And when someone acts out of character, there's usually a reason. That's when the thought came. Quiet, uncomfortable, but clear. What if I didn't miss it? I didn't say it out loud. I barely let myself think it fully. Because that thought doesn't end well. It leads somewhere deeper, somewhere harder. Because if I didn't miss it, then what happened? And more importantly, who knew? After that, I started noticing things I had ignored before. Small moments. But now, they felt different. Like pieces. There were times I heard information late. Times conversations happened without me. Times decisions were already made before I even knew they existed. At the time, they felt random. But now, they felt connected. And that's the thing about patterns. You don't see them when you're inside them. You see them when something breaks. The next morning, I asked her again. Casually, like it didn't matter. Do you remember that job I applied for? She didn't pause, not even for a second. No, you never heard back. Same words, same tone, same certainty. And this time, I wasn't listening for the answer. I was listening for the truth, and they didn't match. And that's when it happened. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet, but final. I stopped trusting the explanation, and I started questioning the source, because it wasn't about the job anymore. It was about something else, something deeper, something I hadn't been ready to see before. And once that shift happens, you can't go back. Because now, every memory looks different. Every moment feels different. And every answer sounds rehearsed. And for the first time in 3 years, I wasn't asking, why didn't they choose me? I was asking, what was I not supposed to see? The next day, I didn't open my laptop dramatically. No deep breath, no hesitation, just quietly, like I was doing something normal, because I told myself this wasn't a big deal. I was just checking, just confirming, just making sure there was nothing there, because if there wasn't, I could finally let it go, close it, forget it, move on. But the truth is, I already knew I wasn't going to find nothing, because that feeling from last night, it didn't come from nowhere. I opened my email, typed the company name, slowly, carefully, like I didn't want to rush whatever was about to appear. Old emails showed up, application confirmation, interview scheduling, follow-ups, everything from that time, everything I remembered, everything I expected, except the one thing that mattered most, the final answer. And for a second, I almost stopped there, because that would have been easier. But something in me said, no. So I changed the filter. Not inbox. Everything. All mail. Spam. Archived. Deleted. Every place something could be hidden. And that's when it appeared. One email. Different folder. Quietly sitting there. Like it had been waiting for me to find it. I clicked it, and everything stopped. Subject line. Congratulations, we are excited to offer you the position. I didn't scroll, didn't read further, because in that one line, everything I believed for 3 years collapsed. That wasn't a rejection. That wasn't silence. That wasn't not meant for me. That was a yes. A clear one. A real one. And I never saw it. Then I looked at the date. 3 years ago. The exact week I was waiting. The exact week I told myself it was over. And suddenly, that version of my life, the one I thought I lost, it didn't disappear. It was taken. And that's a different kind of loss. Because losing something hurts, but having it taken changes everything. I started reading, line by line, offer details, salary, start date, relocation support, everything I needed, everything I wanted. And then I saw it. They had asked for a response. Within 5 days. 5 days. I had 5 days to change my life. And I never even knew. But that wasn't the worst part. I scrolled further, and that's when I saw something I wasn't expecting. Another email. Same company. 3 days later. Subject line. Just checking in. We haven't heard back from you. I opened it. Short. Simple. They were waiting. They were giving me time. Giving me another chance to respond. And I still didn't see it. Because this one was open too. I kept scrolling, and there it was again. A third email. Final. We'll have to move forward with another candidate. That was it. That was the moment everything closed. Not because I missed it, not because I ignored it, because someone made sure I never saw it. Not once, not twice, but every single time they reached out. I went back, checked the details again. All 3 emails. Opened. Every one of them. Not by me. And that's when it hit harder. This wasn't one moment. It wasn't one decision. It was repeated. Controlled. Finished. I scrolled back to the first email. To the offer. To the moment everything started. And then I saw it. At the bottom. A reply. Sent. From my email. 3 years ago. I opened it and read the words that changed everything. Thank you for the opportunity, but I won't be accepting the position. I didn't write that. I never saw that. I never sent that. Which means someone didn't just hide my chance. They ignored it. They blocked it. And then They didn't just hide my opportunity, they responded to it, and they ended it. For me. If this part just hit you, take a second and hit like, because what I discovered next wasn't just a mistake, it was a reason. And once I understood that reason, everything changed. I didn't confront her, not immediately, even after seeing the email, even after reading that reply, because one question kept repeating in my mind. Why would she do this? Not accident, not mistake, not forgetfulness. This was deliberate, planned, executed, which means there was a reason. And I needed to understand it, because without the why, this was just betrayal. But with it, it became something else. That night, I went back again, not to the email, to something older, a conversation I hadn't thought about in years. I was standing in the kitchen, telling her about the job, excited, nervous, and I said, if I get this, I might have to move. Different city, different life. And I remember her face, because she didn't smile. She didn't say, that's amazing. She didn't say, I'm proud of you. She just said, that's very far. At the time, it sounded like concern. Now, it sounded like something else. I always thought she was protective, careful, the kind of mother who just didn't want me too far away. But protection doesn't erase opportunities. Protection doesn't reply to emails. Protection doesn't decide what you're ready for. That's not protection. That's control. And control doesn't always look obvious. Sometimes, it sounds like care. Once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. Every time I tried to move forward, something pulled me back. Not directly, not forcefully, just quietly. Advice that sounded supportive, but always led me to stay where I was, to choose safe, to choose close, to choose familiar. And I never questioned it, because it came from her. And you don't question someone who says they're helping you. Then I thought about Lily again, my cousin. When she got her job, my mother celebrated, encouraged, pushed her forward, told everyone how proud she was. But when it was me, there was hesitation, silence, doubt. Like my success came with a cost she wasn't willing to pay. And that's when I understood something. It wasn't success she had a problem with. It was my success. I went back to that email, again. Not to read the offer, but to understand her. Because at this point, this wasn't about the job anymore. It was about control. The kind that doesn't look like control. The kind that feels like care. The kind that sounds like, I'm just looking out for you. I know what's best. You're not ready yet. And for years, I believed that. I thought she was protecting me, guiding me, helping me. But now, I could see it clearly. She wasn't protecting my future. She was controlling it. Quietly, carefully, completely. And the hardest part? She didn't think she was wrong. She thought she was right. If you've ever had someone control your life and call it care, comment, I understand. Because some truths don't feel wrong at first. They feel normal. Until one day, you finally see them for what they are. And then I remembered something she once told me, years ago, casually, like it didn't matter, that she had applied to a similar company once, same field, same type of role, and she didn't get it. At the time, it was just a story. Now, it felt different, because suddenly, this wasn't about my opportunity. It was about hers, the one she never had. I started putting it together, slowly, carefully. She didn't just see my opportunity, she recognized it. She knew what it meant. She knew what it could lead to. Because she had once wanted the same thing, and didn't get it. And instead of seeing me succeed where she couldn't, she stopped me before I even started. Not loudly, not angrily, quietly, completely. And that's when it became clear. She didn't forget. She didn't miss it. She didn't even hesitate. She made a decision. A quiet one. A final one. She chose to keep me in a life she understood. In a place she could reach. In a version of myself that didn't grow beyond her. And the hardest part wasn't accepting that. It was realizing she believed she was right. I closed the laptop. Slowly, carefully. Not angry, not emotional. Just clear. Because once you understand why something happened, you stop asking questions, and you start making decisions. And in that moment, I wasn't thinking about the job anymore. I wasn't thinking about the email. I was thinking about something else, something bigger. For the first time in 3 years, I wasn't asking what I lost. I was deciding what I was going to take back. I didn't confront her immediately, even after everything, even after the email, even after the reply, because anger reacts, but clarity waits. So I waited, 1 full day, carrying the truth quietly, letting it settle, because this wasn't about proving her wrong. It was about taking something back. And you don't take something back when you're emotional. You do it when you're ready. The next morning felt normal, too normal. She made breakfast, asked simple questions, talked like nothing had changed, like 3 years hadn't just been rewritten. And I watched her, carefully, because now I wasn't just her daughter. I was someone who knew, and there's a difference. Because once you know the truth, you stop listening to words, and you start watching behavior. I didn't start with accusations. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even change my tone. I just said something simple. I checked my old emails. She paused. Barely noticeable, but enough. Because people don't pause unless they're thinking, and people don't think unless they're calculating. She didn't ask what I found. Didn't say, "What do you mean?" Didn't act confused. She just waited. And that silence, it was loud. Because innocent people ask questions. They try to understand. They react. But she didn't. She was waiting to see how much I knew. So I said it. Calm. Clear. There was an offer. No emotion, no hesitation. Just the truth. And her face didn't change immediately. But her eyes did. That small shift. That recognition. Not surprise. Recognition. Like she already knew exactly what I was talking about. I took a step closer. Still calm. Still controlled. "You opened it." A pause. Then I added, "And you replied." That's when it broke. Not dramatically. Not loudly. Just quietly. The moment where denial becomes impossible. Because some truths don't need proof spoken out loud. They're already visible. She sat down. Slowly. Exhaled. And then said something I'll never forget. "I didn't think you were ready." Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "I made a mistake." Just justification. Like she had done something difficult. But right. For me. Without me. And in that moment, I understood something clearly. This wasn't regret. This was belief. She believed she made the right decision. And that's when everything changed. Not outside. Inside. Because for the first time, I didn't feel hurt. I didn't feel angry. I felt certain. Certain that this wasn't about me. It never was. It was about what she needed. What she feared. What she couldn't let go of. And once you see that, you stop trying to explain yourself. You stop trying to be understood. Because you realize you were never being misunderstood. You were being controlled. So I said something she wasn't expecting. I already reached out to them. That time, it was true. I had sent the email. That morning, before breakfast, Before this conversation, before she even knew I knew, I told them I never declined. Her expression changed. Finally. Not guilt, not regret. Loss. Because for the first time, she wasn't deciding anything. I was. A week later, they replied. Not with the same position. That role was already filled. That version of my life was gone. But something unexpected happened. They remembered me. My interview. My work. My ideas. And they said something simple. If you're still interested, we'd like to talk again. It wasn't the same opportunity. It wasn't the same timing. But it was something else. A second chance. Not given to me. Earned by me. This time, I didn't hesitate. I didn't wait. And I didn't ask anyone what I should do. Because for the first time in years, the decision was mine. Completely. I replied. I accepted. And no one saw that email except me. No one opened it. No one answered for me. No one decided for me. And when I packed my things, closed my laptop, and stepped into a life I should have had years ago, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel regret. I felt something else. Clarity. Because the biggest loss wasn't the job. It wasn't the opportunity. It was the time I spent living inside a decision that was never mine. But now, every decision is mine again. And that is something no one gets to take from me. So that's my story. And I want to ask you something. Has anyone ever made a decision for you that changed your life without your permission? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story stayed with you, subscribe, because the next one is even deeper.